Hello, and welcome to the Playing with Power podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things CEDH, EDH, and Magic the Gathering. I'm Cal, and today on this episode, I'm going to be joined by Lua Stardust. Lua Stardust is one half of the Scrybabies content team and has been playing CEDH for a little bit now. On today's episode, we're going to talk about how she got into CEDH, what it was like entering the space as a woman, and plenty more. So thanks for listening. Hello, everybody. Today I'm joined by Lua. I already said that in the intro, which you've already heard. But hello, Lua. Thank you for joining me today. It's great to have you here. Could you introduce yourself a little bit to the listening audience?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Lua Stardust. You might have seen me on this channel before, or if you're listening, I've been on Playing with Power before. And I am I guess, Magic the Gathering content creator. I do other stuff. I do some cosplay and modeling and stuff. But right now, if you look at my Twitter feed, it is exclusively Magic because I am obsessed with this game and too many of its formats. So.
Yeah. Obviously, you are obsessed with Magic the Gathering. It's a pretty easy game to be obsessed with, but, I'm always interested in how people actually got started in playing Magic the Gathering, because it seems like a lot of different people have their own story in their own unique way that they got into it. Lua, how were you introduced to Magic the Gathering?
Yeah, so I, like everybody probably in at least my generation, grew up collecting Pokemon cards. And I was also collecting, Digimon and like everything that was like out at that time. I was collecting Yu-Gi-Oh, playing it. And then in middle school, I actually started collecting Magic cards because I read about them in a random book. And I was like, these look really pretty. So I started collecting them. And I'm 30 now. So whatever age I am in middle school, right? I had a huge collection of Magic cards that I actually lost, which is so sad to think about because I wonder if any of it would have been good or valuable or fun.
Yeah, that's like the classic thing, right? Like, all my old cards
in a storage war. It was in a storage war, so somebody got all my cards, and it's just awful. But 2 years ago, during the pandemic, I was meeting with my D&D group, and one of my friends in our D&D group needed help with a favor, and after I helped him out, he tried to pay me, and I was like, no, I don't want your money. And he was like, well, let me teach you how to play Commander so you can join on our Commander nights and like come hang out and play with us. And I was like, okay, that sounds so sick. And he showed me how to play. And like that night I went to Target. I bought like 3 pre-cons. The next day I went to Star City Games because I used to live near Star City Games, spent a ton of money. And I always joke, and I'm like, I should have just taken the money from him because I've spent so much on Magic now.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, all right, I won't pay you. Here's a life-altering addiction hobby.
Yep.
Here you go.
Yep. I always think about like, because I play so much Commander, but I think about people who play Modern. I'm like, oh, those decks are so expensive. And then I'll look at my like fully foiled out deck and be like, yeah, that's it's kind of comparable.
Exactly. It kind of adds up over time.
Sure.
That is for sure. So you got into EDH in that way. And then how I met you, and I'm sure how at this point a lot of other people have found you through the Magic the Gathering space and whatnot, is actually through competitive EDH, which as I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast knows, is quite a bit different in a lot of ways than like, hanging out at Commander night with your friends. How did that kind of work out? How did we kind of get from, I've been taught EDH, I've been taught Magic to play Commander night as a favor, quote unquote, to jamming the CEDH games? How did that happen? How did that go down?
So when I started finding out that my local game store was hosting like Commander on Sunday, they would play, basically you would pay an entry, and then they would give you packs for playing, but then you would go to tables, and if you won that table, you go to the next one. And I could never get to the second table because my decks weren't competitive enough. And then I was like, I'm gonna play a more high-speed deck. So I made like a low-budget Winota, which got me to the second table, and I won all these extra packs and stuff, and it was like kind of a powerhouse. And I noticed there was a lot of like conversation at the LGS about decks that were like CDH and their CDH decks, which I look at it now, I'm like, those were not CDH decks. Those were decks that just had a little bit more.
That's a real classic, actually. They happen to have a mana crypt in it.
Yep. It was a lot of that. And then I seen like an actual CDH deck for the first time. It was this guy playing Karkashima, and he was a character. But he was just like, look at this. This is what CDH looks like. And I like went through the deck and I saw like all the expensive mana rocks and like cool things. And I was like, all right. And I actually saw you because we were mutuals on Twitter. I had been watching, Playing with Power and Play to Win and like other channels and stuff because I just enjoy listening to the content of the games happening, even if I don't recognize what's going on or didn't at the time. And we had a group chat going on where I was like, I kind of just want to try my hand at it. So I made Winota into a CDH deck because I already had her. And then just started grinding a lot of games. And I have a lot of fun with it. I would like to play more than that deck. I play Kinnan too. I just put together a Dawnmaker Thrasios and like a Nagila. So I'm just trying to have like a nice collection of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like the ability to play something that's like at the highest peak and not having to worry about what else everybody's bringing to the table because of like, the LGS experience, like I said, where people are saying things are CDH and they're not, or bringing a deck that's actually a table with a CDH deck, which is not always the case at LGSs, but sometimes it is. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's the appeal for CDH for a lot of people. They're like, rule zero conversations or pregame conversations or what have. It's dangerous territory. People can get hurt.
Yeah. I just think
it's a misunderstanding.
I don't know if there's anything cooler than doing like an infinite combo, like just a big combo.
Yeah, that's very fair.
Yeah, so that's how I feel about it. But
then why do you play Winota?
I know. Well, there's Kiki Jiki's. Yeah, Kiki Jiki's been doing some stuff. I play Kinnan, like I said, so I get to do a lot of that fun stuff in there, and it's not Boros, so that's cool too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what has inspired? I know you started with Winota, and I mean, you haven't been playing Magic that long. What do you remember what the most recent set was when you started?
I started right before Call Time came out. So like 2 months before that. Yeah.
Whew. Okay. That's crazy to me. That's
yeah.
Because I've been playing Magic for 13 years or something like that. So I gotta say, Lua, it's pretty impressive to me that you jumped kind of right into the deep end, because in a lot of ways, CEDH really is the deep end. It's a lot of complicated interactions. It's a lot of a ton of different cards. Obviously, there's a lot of the same cards. You're going to run into a lot of Ristic studies or what have you. But what was that experience like, kind of jumping right into the deep end? Because I know you played some Commander for a while, but there, like you said, there is kind of a big difference in between kind of like being at Commander night and people being like, oh, this is my CEDH deck that has a mana crypt in it, and then like playing against Krakashima or having full power Winota or whatnot.
I think everybody knows to look out for like a Thassa's Oracle, right, at this point, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cards with like fringe CDH decks or just like things that aren't as like, I don't know what your like most common decks you would see are right anymore, but like a Winota is pretty viable, I would say. A Dawnmaker Thrasios is pretty viable. Godo was cool at one point. So you get like a very specific list of decks that like you kind of know what to look out for, and then I just will see a random thing at the table and be like, I don't know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, give that to me.
Yeah, tournaments, it's always like, I got what the other two decks do. I don't know what the hell that is. It's been...
Look, I still run into that.
Somebody was playing, what is it, the Lannis Cryptozoologist deck, and I was like, who was playing this deck? Nobody. I was like literally just confused by it. But the good thing is there's so much stuff on the internet. Like, I like watching just videos about combos, or like when a new commander, I guess, comes out or something like that. I like to sit down and watch those and see what kind of things people are putting into their decks. I spend a lot of time on like Moxfield, and I kind of just go through stuff, and I am so bad at reading primers, but I try to do that a lot too, to kind of understand what's going in there. But there's just way too many cards out there. And like you said, there are a lot of repeatable cards, like over 6 study, that you'll see in those decks, and you kind of know what to expect with certain things. And like once you know certain combo lines, like of course you're going to look out for that. But I feel like people are crafty. Like even with this new set that came out, there's so much new cards. There's a lot of new cards that I think are really CDH viable, and I just cannot keep up with it. So if it helps at all I do is watch YouTube videos. Like in comparison to doing podcasts, like I guess this is a podcast, right? So I can listen to this.
Yeah.
But I'll listen to like playing with power videos while I'm like doing my dishes or like taking a bath. And that's like the only way I could process. You know, when you're in school and you're like, if I listen to this video before I go to sleep, I'm gonna know all the answers to the test the next day. I do that. it's
but with playing with power and play to win.
Yep, it's pretty much that. So yeah. And of course I play as much as I can. So
that makes a lot of sense. I say that on this podcast way too much. You know, guest, that makes so much sense. Lua, you're so smart. You really have this all figured out.
I try to play too, like Arena, as much as I was like kind of against playing it, just to play more limited stuff. I do pre-releases so I can see what new cards are, right? And that's like my only advice is play more limited, I guess.
Yeah, just play more Magic. Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's like, I do think that's like one of the best things you can do if you're just trying to get into CDH. It's just like play CDH. Just jump in. Just jam games because you'll learn a lot. And so people will show you things.
It's so easy to. It's so proxy friendly. Number one, two. There's so many Discords already that have spaces to play weekly, which is great. So it's very easy to find a play group to want to play some CDH with you. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of videos, there's a lot of podcasts, all that kind of stuff. Of course, like Playing with Power.
It's a very cool show.
But oh yeah, very cool show, very cool channel, very cool gameplay content. But I digress.
As you're wearing the merch of your own show.
Look, you know, I recorded an episode recently where I was wearing a Blues Clues sweatshirt, while Drake, who was also on the podcast with me, was wearing his Playing with Power shirt. And I was like, you know what? Maybe at least the bare minimum I can do is wear the Playing with Power shirt on the Playing with Power show. Yeah,
I think that works. That's not a bad way to do it at all.
A little bit of a uniform, perhaps.
It's at least a pretty logo, you know.
Yeah, I like it a lot. But yeah, was getting into CEDH like intimidating to you at all or anything like that, or was it pretty much just like a chill time?
I think from being at like the LGS and like the way people would talk about it, I was like, oh man, are they actually all pup stompers, or are they actually like really, just because like to me the idea of like I would go to an LGS and be like, all right, let's all play and like put our commanders on the table like you're supposed to. And somebody would like flip it over and be like, I'm not revealing it till it's time. Right. So I was like, oh, is it all those types of people? Yeah. Right. But I wasn't really intimidated by it because like I said, I was already following such personal channels, and like I was friends with you and I was friends with other people that to me made it seem so fun that when I started playing, I wasn't scared to like join a community. I was scared of looking dumb and not knowing my deck well enough. And there's still things where like I'll look at it when I'm starting to play a new deck where I feel confident with it and I'm like, oh shit, that combos with this, or this card works in this way, right? So it's when you're not playing at a super competitive level or like at a tournament or something, if we're playing and you see the line there, most of the time or like somebody will point it out and we'll kind of just go back and forth, right, and shuffle up and play another game. But yeah, I don't really have any negative. I know that's hard to say. Magic Twitter and the internet can be quite negative in general.
Yes, very.
But I don't have any negative things about like CDH in general. It's probably the place I'm the happiest if I'm like playing in general. Like CDH is like the place where I feel the most comfortable. So it's nice. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. And you've been comfortable enough to start playing in some tournaments and stuff, which again to me is pretty wild. You know. Talking about jumping in feet first, you know, you're playing in CDH tournaments, which in my experience are maybe some of the more confusing or intense tournament environments that you can play in, because there's a lot of people. We play in smaller spaces, so everybody's crowding around you. What is the CEDH tournament experience been like?
Well, okay, so I've done 3 so far, and it's been kind of the same record. Like it hasn't been anything crazy good. But I've really liked the experience of playing in a tournament. Like I definitely want to have better stats going out of them. Like that's a goal for sure every time I go there. Sure. I think that also should be me switching up the deck because I don't think Winota is very favored right now in general. And it's very, very hard to play her. Mike is fantastic and just did very well with her, so I can't talk. But it is very hard for her right now. But going there, like the first thing I noticed is I'm like one of 6 women competing and playing, which to me I feel like is pretty important, at least for like that representation. And it is like a little nerve wracking. I have been fortunate where pretty much all of my tables have been like very nice and people have been really chill, and the experience has been good. There's a very like public experience I had in my first tournament where I was like crying, and everybody thinks it's because I'm like a sad sissy girl that's like, oh no, I can't handle this. When it was very much a very different experience. But since then, I have not cried at a CEDH tournament, and I've been doing very good. And it's
only cried
just once, just the one time, and it's all over the internet, so it's great. But other than that, like I really just I enjoy playing webcam CDH, right? It's great. I like playing with my friends and everything like that. But there's nothing compared to like being in the hot seat. Like one of my favorite moments was the last tournament that we went to. It was you, Cam, and Ian and some guy playing a table. And I was just like, man, this is so hard to watch because I love all of you. I want you all to win, but it's also so cool to watch you all play together, especially because like I consume your content. You're my friends, right? So it's nice to kind of just like be in that space, check on how all of your friends are doing throughout the tournament. And like the play style is so different. Most of it's different. Sometimes I feel like some people, we talk about the LGS experience. So there's some of that there, but it's just nice. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun competing. Again, working on getting better stats, but it's taught me a lot about how I want to play as a player and how much more I need to like research other decks and do things. So
today's podcast is sponsored by Card Conduit. Do you have extra cards lying around that you don't use? Want to buy or trade for some extra cards but don't know how to maximize the value? Then you should try out Card Conduit. Card Conduit is the best service when it comes to selling your extra cards. Don't waste hours trying to find the best buy list price for your cards online. Simply send them to Card Conduit and let them take care of the rest. I've used Card Conduit multiple times already. I always use them to get the best value of my extra cards. I get fair prices for my cards and they save me tons of time. They have 3 main services. Their standard service lets you send them unsorted cards of any value. They will sort, grade, and give you the best buy list price for your cards. Their curated service is similar. Send them your unsorted cards worth over $1 in value. They will charge half of the fee of the standard service and charge no fee per card. Their new sorted service is a great value as well. Choose cards in advance with their selection tool, send them sorted to Card Conduit, and they will grade and buy list them automatically. Save yourself the time of having to send to multiple sites and let Card Conduit do it instead. Their fee is only 2% with no fee per card. They give you the best price for your cards. They work with competitive buy listing partners, including ones not open to the public. Users get an average of 19% more for their collection than they would have from a major retail buy list, even with Card Conduit's fees. Card Conduit also optimizes buy listing for card condition as well. Since vendors have different penalties for wear and tear, Card Conduit will find the best buy list price against the specific condition of a card. So give Card Conduit a try today. If you sign up with my link in the show notes or the description, or use the promo code POWER, you'll also get 10% off their fees when you use their service. A big thanks to Card Conduit for sponsoring today's podcast.
Yeah, you did mention that at CDH tournaments, you're perhaps like one of the 6 women, and I think that's a pretty universal experience. Magic the Gathering, at least like publicly, or who you run into at events and all that kind of stuff, is on average middle-aged white men is pretty much like the average Magic the Gathering demographic, at least that go out to events and stuff. But you are not a middle-aged white man.
Yep.
Well,
seems right. Yeah.
Wait, checks out. So you're a person of color. You're a woman. Has that really colored your experience coming into Magic at all? Has that? What has that been like? I don't want to intrude.
No, I don't think so. I think it's been like hits and misses, right? Like there's definitely been experiences of like, I mean, my old LGS getting like super mansplained, right? People thinking, or men specifically thinking that they know more, has definitely been a situation for sure. And I think like, for the most part, I've been pretty lucky where the people I've surrounded myself aren't like that. It's always the random games and the random experiences where like a weird thing might happen. But I think that thankfully most of the Magic people I've came across are very like kind-hearted and like I don't want to use the word woke, but they're woke. They're not like just they're not the average like Chad hanging out at the LGS being like, actually. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. There's definitely like some experience, and that there's more experiences that I've witnessed other people go through than I have, which is unfortunate, and I will always use my voice for those people in those spaces. But I've been pretty fortunate where most of my experiences have been good. I definitely think sometimes the men will underestimate the women in the tournament space. So it's nice to see when people like Alana and other women are like up on the ranks and doing the damn thing. I think Jen won like 3 pods when we were in San Jose, your wife, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So whenever I see a girl doing well, I just get
she beat Matt Sperling. That's all I remember.
And I couldn't either. So, it's really good. So yeah, that's the stuff that I do like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I from somebody who's been around for a while, I do think there has been a very encouraging like sea change or shift in a lot of the larger culture and stuff around Magic the Gathering and around EDH and even around CEDH within like the last 5 years or so. And so, I am happy to hear you say that. And I do know that other people have had some pretty terrible experiences, and that sucks. And I'm glad that they do have somebody like you to be able to speak up for them.
I think
and that kind of stuff, and other people in the community
I think
too.
What's important for events to do is make sure that they're creating those safe spaces for people.
Certainly.
Small things that go a long way, or like name tags for pronouns. One thing I've done in the past and would like to continue doing in the future is sponsoring other women and non-binary people to play in events. So if they don't have the funds to do so, like if I have extra money that month, I'm happy to toss it to somebody so that they get their face out there and that they're competing and like representing us, right? So that's really big. I know not everybody's in a place to do that, but if you ever get just an extra, 30 something bucks, $50 in your pocket, and you want to help somebody out, I think that's a really cool way of doing it.
Buy somebody else's entry. Why not?
So I like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But it has been some major change, but a long way to go. Like you said, like sure. there's a lot of bare minimum stuff that can be done. Like a pronoun pins or name tags or whatever, massive help, great thing. But that's just kind of something you don't actually see all that much at smaller events or larger events, which would be great to see more of.
For sure.
Shifting gears a little bit, now that you have been in the Magic the Gathering space since the grand old age of right before Kaldheim, you yourself have also, just like you jumped pretty much feet first into CEDH, the format, you've also jumped pretty head first into Magic the Gathering content creation. And towards the beginning, you were streaming, appearing a lot of other people's streams, talking about it a lot online. But now you have something called Scrybabies. Could you tell me a little bit about Scrybabies?
Yeah. Scrybabies is myself and Tori the Vast. We were both, like you said, creating content about Magic Online, streaming, TikTok, stuff like that. And the two of us have been friends since I started playing Magic. You and I have talked about this earlier in this podcast too, where a lot of shows are just white men. There's not a lot of women-led shows. I could probably count the women-led shows like on one hand if I really wanted to. And so the two of us really wanted to focus on creating a space that was a lot of faces that you don't normally see in Magic. Diversity, of course. Like I'm a POC myself. I'm gay. POC woman, like that's the first thing. So that's like already a huge step. And then I think LA is so lucky to get so many incredible people out there, and you see them constantly on Command Zone and all those shows, right? But there's so many people on the East Coast who I don't think get showcased enough. So that was something we wanted to do, and we wanted to be able to travel to other LGSs or conventions and meet people and create these like fun episodes. So we do EDH, we do some CDH. We're doing more 1v1 formats. So we have some like Modern on there, as well as we have a Pioneer episode coming up. All types of stuff. I want to do a Dan episode. I think that'll be really cool. It has to be with Cal and Brayden though. But yeah, I think it's the main focus is like EDH brought me and Tori together, but Tori has such a big love for 1v1 and I have such a big love for CDH that we're just meshing it all together. Yeah.
Yeah. How's that been going? It seems like the reception has been pretty great.
Yeah, it's been really great. We only started in January, right? And it's been very successful and I've been very happy with it. It is not an easy job. It is very hard. Shout out to all the editors in the world, because oh my gosh, I could not imagine sitting for 20 plus hours editing a gameplay video. That is a lot. I think the nice thing about, you know, some Playing with Powers videos, not including masterpieces, because that's a whole different experience, is I love the narration videos. I got to do some of those myself on Spike Feeders, and I love what Ryan does. But I think that aspect is so easy, like not easy because you have to write a whole script and do everything, right? But it's so simply put out there. It's easy to watch. Getting people to like sit and watch a 45 to 50 minute Commander video is very,
it's definitely a lot more of an investment.
It's hard, and paying for that's also very expensive. But overall, I'm just really happy with the content that we've been putting out and the reception to it, and getting to work with cool people. That's all I want to do. So
it makes a lot of sense. And I think you have been very successful in working with a lot of cool people. You've had a lot of cool people on there, and you've had a lot of cool people involved. Like I know that a good friend of mine and of yours, Dan, I saw that they recently just edited their first video for you. It's just exciting stuff to be able to make cool content that people want to see, and you get to get a lot of other people involved. And you get to be, you know, representative of what is, I said earlier that Magic the Gathering is like publicly a white male hobby, but Wizards of the Coast has said that it's like actually not. Those are just like the people who feel comfortable coming to events, right? And for reasons that we could talk about for forever. But it's great that you're able to be that representative in the content space, because like you said, I as far as women-led content teams I'm aware of, there's like Good Luck High Five. I'm aware of like Good Luck High Five, and then I'm aware of Scrybabies.
Elder Dragon Hijinks, like that's it. There's
yes, Elder Dragon Hijinks for sure.
It.
Yeah,
like and I know there's some women that like upload just like Magic content, but not as much gameplay in general. And there's also not a lot of in-person gameplay. The one thing that we were talking about to me is me and Tori wanted to make a gameplay show that is the change that we want to see in the community. And not everybody, like, I would highly encourage, if I could, any woman who's watching this, like who wants to create a show, please go out there and do it. But it's so hard when the Commander market feels very saturated. There's so much gameplay that comes out all the time, which is great. I love to consume it. I'll do it all day. But as content creators, it is hard. And two, it's easier said than done. It's expensive. Like just getting 3 cameras itself, and we're not even using like super amazing cameras, is very expensive. Not to mention the cost of editing and paying your guest or feeding your guests or doing whatever you're doing. It's really hard to do. And I think there's like some channels that just really bring new life to Commander that I love and I think are really special. But overall, it's easier said than done, I guess. And while I'm grateful for this experience, it has been quite the challenge. Because also, too, we like have been talking about doing this together for months before we started it. But we fully were like in August, like, okay, we're doing this and we're putting out our first episode in January. So it was like the fastest grind to get a logo done, to get an editor hired, to get everything done. So it's a lot.
No, exactly. Yeah. The startup for making like the content that you two make is a lot higher quality at floor than a lot of other people start with. And I think it's very evident that you have put a lot of thought into it. And like you said, a lot of money into it. But yeah, I get it. Like for masterpieces, we bought some used cameras and it ran us a lot of money.
Yep. But now you get to see that side of it too, because like while you do record in person, like at conventions and like other spaces, it's not the same as like what you're doing for masterpieces, right? So it's different. Yeah,
aspect. Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool though.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I'm really excited that the two of you are doing it. I have loved watching all of the Scrybabies content that I have had the time to consume, because it turns out that when you yourself make content, it takes up a lot of your time to check out other people's content. But I have watched everything except for your newest video, and I have loved it all. I just shouted out Dan for editing a video, and I haven't watched it yet, so
it's okay. It's okay.
I think that's just the content creator lifestyle. Well, great job, everybody. I'll check it out next year.
I think you just need to come play on our channel, and then we can get like a Play with Power Scrybabies crossover, and then that's the content everybody needs. For sure.
Well, this is like a little tiny mini Scrybabies Playing with Power crossover, right? Like a tiny little one.
1-in-1 we're good, yeah.
Where's Ryan? 1-in-1, yeah, exactly. 1/6 of the Playing with Power team combines with 1/2 of the Scrybabies team to combine Exactly. But I'm glad that you've been able to do that, and the hard work that you two have been putting in, it really shows. And I can't wait to continue seeing where it keeps going. It's been
Thank
awesome.
you.
And yeah, like you said, it can be kind of discouraging to get started in the content world, because as more and more content gets made, it seems like the floor for what people think they have to hit as a bare minimum gets like raised, and which is expensive and it's time consuming. It takes a lot of work and a lot of planning. But like you said, just go for it. But Lua, you have been an independent content creator for a very long time, just before Magic too. And I actually wanted to, in this vein, ask if you had anything that you would give as a tip or a trick to that woman or somebody else listening who said, I am going to do something. I am going to make something. Is there any sage advice you would imbue upon them?
I would say get some good savings.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Get some good savings. 2, figure out what you're allowed to write off on your taxes, because that is the hardest thing ever, is figuring that out. As far as, I think that Ryan might have like an Amazon marketplace or something with all the stuff that y'all have on set. We need to set up one too, but looking for those kind of resources where you can find kind of like the best and easiest setup for the people who have already done this before, so you don't have to freaking give yourself a headache by looking for the materials.
Other people have done the
Just
research.
Look at that. And yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are pretty open about talking about their experience and getting into content creation and creating these shows. So like, don't be afraid to ask that advice or listen to when people are speaking about it. But yeah, I think really just focusing on the things that are important to you and your brand is like the essential thing. I know that YouTube itself is something that I wasn't used to. I was doing content creation on Instagram and Twitter. And man, YouTube has a way of making you doubt everything that you love about your job or your content that you're producing, because the algorithm is really rough and it's just tough on there. And that's been something that, like, as a new show, we've had to kind of talk about, because it felt like sacrificing like something you love for the view count is like a very common conversation. And I think sticking to your guns about things you're passionate about, but not costing yourself an arm and a leg while doing it, is like the one thing that you have to find balance for in this kind of industry. But
yeah, that makes a whole ton of sense. I said it again.
I need the catchphrase of Cal on a t-shirt.
It's just like, that makes a lot of sense. Playing with power. I think we could make that happen. More playing with power merch, all that kind of fun stuff. But, that was some great tips, Lua. Thank you for sharing.
Got it.
And, do you have anything else to say about content before I wrench you right back to talking about CEDH?
Not really. I think it is, I think everybody who like wants to do content, the more important, I think the important thing, this is even something I said to Ryan too when they were going full-time content, is like making it a strict schedule for yourself and trying to stick to it, because once you're going full-time, it's really hard to step away for work or give yourself time to like actually you're sighing because it's really hard to commit to giving yourself that time for yourself. So yeah, that's all my content help.
All right, that makes a lot of
Don't say it.
I stopped myself. I didn't say it this time. All right. Way earlier in this podcast episode, I wrote down this little thing I wanted to ask you about, which was, you started with Winota.
Yes.
We're going way back. You started with Winota. You've started playing Kinnan. You started playing some other decks. But have you made the jump, which I think is actually kind of a hard jump to make? It's not really one that I've made. But have you made the jump from CEDH player to CEDH brewer?
No.
Are you out there? You're not out there tweaking your lists. You're not making those changes.
If I want a list,
you haven't dropped some hot spice on the world.
My thing is, to my boyfriend Ian, I want this as a CEDH deck. Make it, because like that is not me.
Yeah.
I respect all the brewers in the world. I love your primers. Thank you so much. My brain does not work like that. Whenever a new card gets spoiled, there's like 7 CEDH people on my feed like, how do we break this? And I'm like, my brain is like, new shiny card.
I don't know. That's nice art.
Yeah.
I'm I'm in the exact same
Yep.
boat. I try my best to work on exactly one deck because it's a deck that people look towards me to work on, which is just that good old it's just good old Teamer Pirates. But past that, man, I am useless.
You can cut this if you want to, but did you see the tweet that Ian made the other day that was like, I figured out the Shalai combo, and was like he basically woke up and was like, I found this new combo for Shalai. It's the best thing ever. Was going off about it and like read it to me. It was the Meal and Dockside thing. And I was like, Mike already posted that like 2 days ago.
Look, yeah. I think Mike and Ian have just been sharing the same 2 CEDH brain cells for like 2 years now.
So it's a lot of that. And like, I, again, give credit to those people because my brain could just not do it. Maybe one day, like there's definitely some things I think could be viable that aren't looked at. But yeah, I don't think it'll have the full capacity to be like, here's a 99 perfect cards or 98 perfect cards for these commanders. No.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that something you ever really foresee yourself eventually doing? Or do you think you're just going to be happy to keep jamming cards?
I think I'm going to be happy
learning about different lists.
To jam stuff. I mean, I love brewing commander decks in general, but it's not the same thing. In my opinion, at least, it's not the same thing. So yeah, I think if anything, it would be kind of what you're saying, where I'd be like, these are changes to Winota that I think could be really good. And you with Teamer Pirates, and then that's it. like, so.
Past CEDH, going past CEDH again. I know that you learned Popper on the fly pretty much for the professor's shuffle up and play episode. You and I talked about that a decent bit in the run up to that. But with Scrybabies, you are doing many other Magic the Gathering formats and showcasing many other ways to play Magic beyond just Commander and whatnot. Have you been really getting into those other ways to play? Or have you just been like, all right, I've tried this Popper thing. I'm going back to my Commander. I've tried this modern thing. Yeah, I'm going back to Commander.
So I've definitely been playing Popper for a while still. Like I have 2 other decks that I've been rotating out and been having fun with that. I know like Oathbreaker is a thing that people have been playing. That's cool, whatever. I get really hyped on specific decks. Like I remember the morning that Winota got banned in Pioneer, I woke up, I just filled up my cart with all the cards and I was like, I'm going to be playing Winota and Pioneer. I'm so happy about it. And then she got banned an hour later, right? So I was off it for a little bit, but there's this Greasefang deck that I really want to play on Pioneer. I'm like, I kind of want to have like 1 or 2 decks for every format, and just being able to jam them seems really fun to me. But that's kind of where I'm at.
That makes not much sense. That doesn't make much sense to me, Lua.
Every time you see it, you're giving me $1.
Much sense to me.
That's a new thing.
$1,
and then I can take a vacation.
I am bankrupt. I have no more money left. It's my turn to take a vacation. I'm finally taking a vacation. The one piece of content advice that Lua has given me time again is take a vacation.
You are.
And listener, I am at long last listening to her. So write that one down too. Take a vacation. I think that's a great tip for everybody,
because we travel so much for work and for events where it almost feels like we're on vacation because we're doing it, but the whole time we're working. So is it a vacation? No.
Yes.
We get to eat at a cool restaurant. Love it. But that's it. Like,
ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Ooh, that's I'm having a blast out of the fluorescent lights of the convention center. This is so relaxing.
And then after, people want to go play more Magic the Gathering in the lobby somewhere. So I'll play Magic from dusk to dawn.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Well, Lua, here on the Playing with Power podcast, we keep things like under 45 minutes every single time we can help it. So we're running out of time a little bit here. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about to your great friend Callahan on this episode of the Playing with Power podcast?
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me. If you haven't watched the 4 Winota episode on Playing with Power, you should watch it because it's really good and for no other reason at all. And I would love if one day we can collab again, Scrybabies and us, or you. I don't know why I think I'm in Playing with Power. It's fine.
Like a borderline moving towards honorary member of Playing with Power, I guess at this point. You probably have more guest appearances than anybody who's not a Mox
Love to see it.
Up there. So, which is very funny. All you have to do to get onto Playing with Power is be a cool creator. So write that down. Let's write that down. But where can people find you around the internet, Lua?
So I am Lewis Stardust on everything. You go to lewisstardust.com to find all the ways to find me on socials. And then if you want to check out my show, Scrybabies, me and Tori put out new episodes every other Friday. You can check those out. And we're just Scrybabies MTG on everything. So that's where we're at.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me, Lua. It was great chatting with you about these variety of things. I would love to have you back another time.
Yay, thanks, pal.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Make sure to give us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or your favorite podcast aggregator. You'd be surprised how much it helps. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and more. All links are in the episode notes, as well as Lua's links as well. Thanks again to Lua for joining me on the podcast today. And that wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we talk more about our favorite format and our favorite game, Magic the Gathering. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next time.